Citizens must get ready to live with COVID-19. 1 month trial for schools. And what to expect during COVID-19 testing.
This is the National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for Tuesday's news. The national government will be giving schools 1 month to trial new protocols in light of the state of emergency. The new protocols will be focused on how students and their teachers will behave as Papua New Guinea shifts its focus to living with COVID-19. The government will review the school's behavior throughout the month of May.
To shut down school.
The Prime Minister yesterday announced the return of students back to school. Tertiary institutions will resume next week Monday, while primary and secondary schools will resume on the 4th of May. But the Prime Minister says the institutions will be closely monitored and strict protocols will be in place.
We will trial education for the month of May. The month of May, the controller will issue specific protocols that teachers must conduct in this manner, classes must be run in this manner, students must conduct themselves in this manner in all our schools, and we will see whether corona and presence of corona or spread of corona is stopped.
The Prime Minister added that they will evaluate the education institutions in the month of May and make recommendations to Parliament on the 2nd of June.
If we see those protocols are breached, or if we see that corona is now affecting all our schools in our country, then before Parliament resumes on the 2nd of June for SOE to be dispensed with, then we will have enough information and statistics on hand from the control point perspective to make an informed decision as we go into the future.
Marape said that the government didn't want to take the easy way out, instead took responsibility in ensuring students return to their respective education institutions.
The easy way out for me as a government is to shut down school and said you may start in school next year. But as a responsible government, leading a team of responsible leaders, members of parliament and cabinet ministers, we feel it is our moral right to ensure education is not sabotaged or sacrificed.
Veli Sukina, National EMTV News.
The government says citizens must now adapt to new living standards. This call made by Prime Minister James Marape yesterday, while adding that COVID-19 is likely to still be around until 2021. Marape says PPEs are running out and the countries will be rushing for vaccines, so PNG has to start listening to proactive measures set in place.
Not necessarily on one or two.
Prime Minister James Marape yesterday gave an insight into what is expected of the country and what is currently happening in the world in regards to COVID-19. The Prime Minister started off with his own explanation that coronaviruses are a large family of viruses known to cause illnesses ranging from the common cold to more severe diseases such as Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS, and Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, SARS. This includes the latest trend of coronavirus, COVID-19.
Me like talk, me no medical expert, lo talk to molo display. But look at doctors what talk, SARS, and me come up before. MERS, one blood kind similar virus, and me come up before. Kassen blood sick and corona was COVID-19 now.
He said the COVID-19 pandemic has put the world into a situation where there is a shortage of personal protective equipment, with a huge demand for it.
Because corona has an effect not necessarily on one or two spots, but it's pandemic and the effect is global. PPE has run out because the global demand is so huge.
Marape also stated that like the shortage of PPEs, countries will also be rushing for vaccines once they are perfected by manufacturers.
There's a high likelihood the demand on vaccines found for corona will be also in high demand and running out in the same manner. And so Papua New Guineans will have to learn to adapt to living with the presence of corona for the balance of this year and next year.
The Prime Minister says the country must now face the fact that we will be living with COVID-19 for the balance of this year and also accepting the new living standards that citizens must now adopt.
Next 3 or 4 weeks, as we live under the control environment where the controller, by exercising directions on how you may behave and live, this should impress on the minds of Papua New Guineans that this is the living standard of Papua New Guinea with corona for the balance of this year.
Marape ended his brief by saying that they will be repeating the same information on social distancing and hygiene, so it becomes second nature to all citizens.
Don't get tired of these messages. Repetition is for emphasis also must talk English. Talk plenty time people make him same talk lo you and ensure him that you citizens you hire him good. Put him lo help lo you good lo behind him.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
The government is working on a relief plan for those facing hunger during the COVID-19 state of emergency in Papua New Guinea. It says it has plans to work with churches to help provide relief for Papua New Guineans. But there's a catch to the plan, which will involve community service.
Decline in the amount of fresh produce.
With strict state of emergency measures put in place and lockdowns effected in 3 provinces, livelihoods have been affected for middle to low income earners in the country. But the Prime Minister says they are working to help ease the burden on some in society. Prime Minister Marape says those who have fallen on hard times, especially those who face hunger, will be assisted, and plans are in place for urban areas, starting with Port Moresby.
We said walk, now stop nothing, long settlements, stop nothing, lo city, where plenty because no got kake or making sales, you struggle. NCDC Governor, the Honorable Powers Parker, one of our leaders from NCD, as well as Central Province leaders led by the Honorable Robert Agorobe, one-time people of national government. We're mobilizing government support as well as family of private sector support.
Marape says those who are genuinely in need will have to give their names to their local churches to then pass on to city authorities.
You stop lo settlement or suburb, church nearest you will be the place in which your name is submitted. You give him name, it's the church. You give a church period, you Catholic, so you give him a Catholic, or you revival, and you give him a revival, or you SDA, and you give him a SDA. Yes, you can do this, but we ask for the church that is closest to where you are living.
But there is a catch to this, and that is those who are starving will have to make an effort to clean the city before getting their fill. This means some hours of community service must be done.
The catch is this, free kai. One of you stop, but city governor, but talk. You through need him kai, 3 hours or 4 hours, you help clean him city, one of you stop. Clean him rubbish, cut him grass, broom him city, broom him street, and NCDC. Anand lo NCD Governor Bluimi, the Honorable Governor Pakop, but give him this walk long. Usad line you feel awesome. No got kai lo house now you need him food assistant.
Marape says this is a short-term measure in place, and plans going into the future to further ease the burden will also involve a repatriation program from urban to rural areas.
Usad line you feel him life he hard long city. You no got walk na stablo here. After you may come out long COVID time, but register him name right throughout our country. Controller I give him one process long you are ticked as you're not COVID virus infected and you are free, so we can put you as part of our repatriation program where government thinking will make him so that you can go back to a place where Kaika is stopped, Kauka is stopped, Wara is stopped, and hopefully next year as maybe walk along partnering of districts for SME and agriculture programs, you too can participate in this program, law districts where you, one of you may come from and not in the urban areas.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV News.
Eastern Highlands Provincial Police Commander David Sione has called for cooperation from people in the province as the province launched efforts to prevent COVID-19. Police and health authorities opened a checkpoint at Kasam. The Kasam Health Centre will be used as a COVID-19 quarantine centre for the Eastern Highlands.
Responsibility goes back to you as an individual. As a member of this country, as a citizen of this country, you have to take ownership. And in this time of crisis where it's a medical emergency, everyone should be cooperating. Everyone should be working together for a positive outcome. So as we speak, we don't have any solution to this virus. And it is very sad and frightening to see that people are still ignorant of simple rules that have been imposed by the government. And that's something that we should look at ourselves and think, are we doing the right thing or not? At least everyone in different agencies, different departments are doing their part, trying to prevent the spread of COVID-19. As citizens, we also have a responsibility to each other and to everyone. And we should be taking this onus on ourselves and try to comply with the rules handed down by the government through the SOE controller. And that's my appeal to the people in Eastern Highlands. And I want you people to ensure that whatever has been handed out by the government on certain restrictions, please adhere to it.
Nearly 1,000 essential workers were tested in the nation's capital leading into last weekend after a person of interest who had been working at the command center for the country's response against COVID-19 came back positive. Our EMTV crew stationed at NOC 19 for the daily press conferences also had to be tested on Thursday, their results returning back negative along with 125 others, which included that of Prime Minister James Marape. Adelaide Sirik's Curry reports on what you can expect if you go for COVID-19 testing.
As a journalist, you are conditioned to report on issues and remain detached from them. I had never considered that things would drastically change from reporting on COVID-19 to being tested for it. Never would I have thought I would be amongst some 1,000 essential workers who had been working at the National Operations Centre to respond to the COVID-19 community transmission threat. Unfortunately, that was the situation myself and 7 other EMTV crew members and some 60 media colleagues who had been stationed at NOC 19 were faced with. Last Thursday morning, the centre went into lockdown and all essential workers who had been in the building over the past 2 weeks were required to get a test for COVID-19. The testing was and is currently being conducted at the Redemption Complex in Port Moresby. For the MTV crew, we were lucky enough to have vehicle pass for the NOC 19, which allowed us entry into the complex. Once there, the first triage had an officer collect your place of residence and age. The next triage was the queue for testing. Once you reach testing, there is another set of information collected, this time more detailed. Personal information, whether you had travelled overseas or been in contact with a person of interest, if you had flu-like symptoms, and when the symptoms started. Your contact details are taken and you are ushered off to be tested. The nurse taking the sample is behind a glass booth with 2 holes where his hands will come out and take the swabs. The sample is taken all the way at the back of the nasal cavity and it will cause discomfort. All nurses within the second triage were fully covered in personal protective equipment. From there, you were ushered off. That's what struck me the most. No information was given on what you should do. I had to ask what looked to be the nurse in charge what exactly I had to do. She advised to self-isolate for 14 days.
So we have just checked out. Our results have come back negative for the MTV crew. Took 2 days and we are now returning back home.
Our results returned on Saturday evening, diagnosis negative, announced through a media statement as the Prime Minister's samples were among our samples sent on Friday to Brisbane, Australia for testing. While the results are negative, WHO does recommend that a person exposed to a positive case continues to self-isolate for 14 days. I would like to point out the importance to continue to practice social distancing and healthy hygiene practices like covering your mouth with your elbows when you sneeze and always wash your hands clean before touching your eyes, nose and ears until and when our government can be confident enough to say that we have no community transmission.
Every time we come up with one positive case, Mipla woklo line him, glass him, review response capabilities, response protocols, so when I'm some wokim most appropriate way law respond law these all cases. So
Adelaide Sirik's Curry, National MTV News.
You're watching National MTV News. We'll be back with more after the break. Welcome back. School inspections on COVID-19 preparedness commenced today in Leh by a task force team from the district administration. The inspections are purposely to make sure secondary and primary schools are in a hygienic condition to commence next month. Bugandi Secondary School was one of 3 schools inspected today.
The COVID-19 task force has commenced with inspections in schools within Leh. They started with 3 schools today. Bugandi Secondary School was one of them. The inspections are purposely to make sure schools have preventative measures in place for COVID-19 and have an environment conducive for social distancing practices. Bugandi Secondary School head teacher Tony Gao said his greatest concern now, like many other schools within the city, is overcrowding.
The problem that I think most schools like mine will be facing is we have so many students in a class. I have between 70 to 80 students in a class. So when it comes to social distancing, I will have a problem.
Following the first COVID-19 confirmed case in the province, schools were among other large agencies to be closed. The recent SOE orders have indicated that secondary and primary schools will commence next month, however must have hygienic conditions and adhere to social distancing practices. This would be unrealistic given the time limit before schools resume. Schools now need to plan fast and need readily available funds to execute any emergency plan.
Like this morning, I started talking to one of my teachers about establishing or just connecting water pipes to make tap water available around the campus so that students can wash their hands and get themselves ready to go into classes.
For now, Bugandi Secondary School is improvising to make sure students are up to date with lessons.
I have a very good teachers who have already started using the students to use their mobile phone for sending lessons and so on.
Meanwhile, school inspections will continue into the coming weeks before schools resume next month. Charlene Eri, National EMTV News, Leh.
The International Committee of the Red Cross, or ICRC, is working closely with local authorities and Papua New Guinea Red Cross Society, or PNG RCS, in the Highlands and Bougainville. They're providing personal protective equipment and hand washing stations, along with hygiene and awareness material to health facilities as part of the capacity building and prevention measures. Many people living in remote areas had no access to basic information such as the need for social distancing, maintaining hygiene, or washing their hands regularly. The ICRC is also training and sensitizing village birth attendants on COVID-19 and mental health so they could reach out to vulnerable communities of Enga, Hela, Southern and Western Highlands provinces. The counting for Menyamia district by-election in Morbe province is expected to begin as polling ended today. Menyamia's by-election follows the death of MP Thomas Pelika in October last year. There were 138 polling conducted without disruptions, except for the bad weather that delayed the arrival of the polling officials and the security personnel. The by-election returning officer, Nande Awape, said the counting would be held at the 5 LLGs, followed by the quality check and elimination at the district office. Awape commended the police efforts in ensuring a safe and free polling. And now looking at the NASFund market report, the Kina closed unchanged at $0.291 US in the interbank market this morning. At Bank South Pacific, your Kina was buying $0.2835 US, $0.4436 Australian dollars, $0.2533 euro and 29.87 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading lower, coffee closed lower, cocoa and copper closed lower as well. Palm oil closed lower, crude oil is trading higher, and copper closed the day lower. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed lower, the All Ordinaries closed lower, and the ASX 200 closed lower. You're watching National EMTV News. Up next, some stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to the news. A 27-year-old man was physically abused by a police officer over the weekend. The officer, believed to be part of the SOE Joint Security Task Force, physically assaulted and hit the man with his gun. The family has reported the matter to the Boroko Police Station Internal Investigation Unit for further investigations.
It was after the 8 p.m. lockdown that this young man was physically abused and assaulted by what he says were members of the Joint SOE Security Task Force team.
More come down and more come na questioning me plan. All come straight, all come na charging me plan. Come charging me plan now, more fighting me stop na. Sla handle me. Handle me all kishim na puti on tablo. Che na all fighting lo gun bate.
Henry says he was also robbed of his hard-earned money.
Now, two block come down, all come no backside blow me, all searching pocket blow me. You can search pocket blow me now, I'm all one me. Rosing cash blow me, 200 kina.
The family whom he was with also lost half of their market goods, with money worth 2,500 kina and their dinner to the police officer, who was said to have forced himself into the market stall and raided them.
I'm just come to all up him gate blow me plan. I'm come inside. I'm kiss him all get something blow me plan. Kai to me plan put him. I'm just come kiss him. Want him all biscuit, all smoke, money, all get something.
The family is now calling on the SOE controller, NCD provincial government and the police hierarchy to look into the matter. This is the second case to be reported so far. MTV managed to contact the person in charge of Boroko Police Internal Investigations Unit, Robert Halley, who said that the complainant's matters are now under investigation. He says these incidents happened during the operational time and they will be assessed properly. Anyone who is abused by a police officer can call the Internal Affairs toll-free number on 320-2634. Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
And turning overseas now, for the past week, there has been relief in the White House that projections have predicted a much lower death toll than first anticipated, around 60,000 from the coronavirus. But a source close to the task force at the White House warns if the states move too quickly, then the most recent model predicts a surge in the number of lives that will be lost.
Reopening this Friday in Georgia, gyms, bowling alleys, barbershops and some other businesses that can't do work from home.
This measure will apply statewide and will be the operational standard in all jurisdictions.
Monday, restaurants will also reopen. Kemp says all businesses that are reopening must screen employees for illness and practice social distancing.
By taking this measured action, we will get Georgians back to work safely.
South Carolina expected to open stores and beaches Tuesday, which were open all weekend in Jacksonville, Florida, with social distancing rules flagrantly flouted.
I think that decision was reckless. It shows you how undisciplined the leadership of this country has been, because we do not have a consistent message.
And there are still hotspots: Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia. One more pork plant just closed indefinitely in Minnesota after an outbreak. Nearly 10% of U.S. pork production is now shut down. And cases continue cropping up at nursing homes. The CDC now mandating that residents and their families are informed about outbreaks, along with the CDC.
And we are also paying for labs to go out to nursing homes to collect samples.
Meanwhile, our leaders struggle to balance the pain of the virus.
I had the sense that I was drowning at certain points. I was unable to even stand.
With the pain of the shutdown.
You don't need protests to convince anyone in this country that we have to get back to work and we have to get the economy going and we have to get out of our homes. Nobody. The question is going to become how, when, how fast.
One influential model suggests just these 4 states can safely open first on May 4th, still 2 weeks from today.
What we are reporting is a level that a state can comfortably move to a containment stage.
That level is 1 new case per day per 1 million people. So, for example, New York State would need fewer than 20 cases per day. Right now, they're still seeing more than 5,000. All large events in the city, concerts, parades, were just cancelled through June. The governor now wants a bump in pay for essential workers.
When you were home with your doors locked, dealing with cabin fever, they were out there dealing with the coronavirus. I would say hazard pay, give them a 50% bonus, and I would do that now.
Apparently, at 1 new case per million per day, a state will have the capacity to care for that patient and also trace and test their contacts. Bottom line,
unless we get the virus under control, the real recovery economically is not going to happen.
Wherever and whenever we reopen, we will see a rise in cases in those places. Now, the governor of Georgia concedes that. He knows that cases will go up, but he says that they have the capacity and he is confident that they will stay on top of it.
The coronavirus has infected global oil markets so badly, U.S. prices have plunged below zero and the fallout is likely to affect the region. So what's driving the collapse? Well, put simply, empty roads.
Diesel fuels our farms, but cheap oil is no windfall. It's a warning sign.
The New Zealand economy's ended up shattered out of all of this. The low oil prices are a symptom of the problem, not the problem itself.
This is Auckland's northern motorway on a busy day. Traffic is light. Fuel sales have plummeted 75 to 80% during lockdown. Elsewhere, it's worse.
Traffic's down to 10% in parts of the states. We're not at that level in New Zealand, and I think, we will get to some form of normality in our business at some stage in the next 2 or 3 months.
In the US, so much oil and so little demand, storage has run out. The government stepped in, adding 75 million barrels to its strategic reserve, basically pouring oil into caverns under Texas.
If we could buy it for nothing, we're going to take everything we can get.
Will Kiwis get an even better price once we come back to the pumps?
Yeah, prices could drop further, so I expect markets to treat what happened in the US as being a US issue. That's sort of kind of interesting, but the global oil markets will continue to work in the way that they have been, constrained by the supply in a declining demand situation.
Z Energy dialed back supplies early. Production at Marsden Point refinery halved. Government revenue will also take a hit.
I would estimate that the overall market impact would be something around $200 to $250 million less taxes being collected on fuel right now.
That money is supposed to be shoveled into roads. At least those aren't getting a hammering.
So what I think we should do, we should really think carefully and quickly about what's the opportunity in all of this. Let's be mindful that we invest in a way that delivers on the climate change challenge as well as solving the problem we have in terms of an economy that's in recession.
Yes, you heard it. An oil man promoting a greener recovery. We are in a new world here.
The Ruby Princess is scheduled to leave Australian waters in 2 days, despite hundreds of crew on board being infected with COVID-19. The multi-million-dollar cruise ship is blamed for over 20 deaths, and some surviving passengers have started legal action.
33 days at sea, the Ruby Princess lockdown is being lifted. Docked south of Sydney with 1,000 crew in isolation, today 49 were allowed to disembark to go into quarantine.
We would be keen to see that go on Thursday. I think people right around New South Wales would like to see that happen. There's still some health outcomes to occur.
After touring New Zealand, passengers got off in Sydney despite more than a dozen people showing symptoms of the virus. For 21, including American Chung Chen, it was their final voyage.
He was a great person. He was very kind. All he wanted was to see the world. And he would always say how he didn't have enough time to see everything.
COVID-19 has trapped tens of thousands on cruise ships around the world. It's been 6 weeks since passengers and crew on a planned worldwide trip of the MCS Magnifica were allowed onto land. It docked in Wellington in early March. As the virus spread, borders closed, leaving cruise liners in limbo.
They make the best out of a bad situation because it's a pandemic, so...
The Magnifica and 2 other cruise ships still carrying passengers all finally allowed to dock today in various ports, while the owners of the Ruby Princess are being accused of gross negligence. Chung Chen's wife and daughter, who both recovered from the virus, are asking for $1 million compensation.
The people on the previous voyage had many cases of coronavirus, and they didn't tell us that at all.
A police investigation is underway into who knew what, and those crews still on board waiting to find out when they too can return to land.
In New Zealand, more than 10 billion New Zealand dollars is now being paid in wage subsidies during lockdown to keep workers employed. But as an increasing number of businesses struggle, what happens if one folds after it's claimed the money?
Lockdown, this Auckland bar was a hotspot for cocktails and dining. Its owner claimed $75,000 in the government's wage subsidy scheme to pay staff for 12 weeks. The money was all passed on to staff, but shortly after, the company filed for liquidation.
At the moment, what we've said to those companies, not necessarily those who completely fold, but those whose circumstances change, that money is there to pay the wages of their staff, and it should get to their staff.
The official line from the Ministry of Social Development is, if a company's passed on wage subsidy money to its employees and then goes into liquidation, workers won't have to give the money back, but it might be a different matter for their employer. The ministry says employers are required to notify any change in circumstances, including liquidation, and any decision to recover payments from the employer would be decided case by case. To claim the wage subsidy, a company has to agree to keep staff on for 12 weeks on at least 80% of their normal income. The scheme's designed to help people keep their jobs to the end of lockdown.
Directors need to satisfy themselves that they've got enough runway to survive, and whether it's appropriate to claim the wage subsidy.
But if that runway runs out, the liquidator could take charge.
My advice to employees would be to ask for it to be paid as a lump sum. And it does actually make it safer in some ways, because once it's paid across to the employees in a bona fide way, then there's no ability to recover it.
Some relief if that's your last paycheck for a while.
Trukai Sports is next, and we join Elijah Lavette at the Trukai Sport Desk.
Thanks, Helen. I'll be back with all the sporting updates in Trukai Sports after the break.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The 2020 OFC Nations Cup has been cancelled. The event was scheduled to take place in Cook Islands last month, but was postponed. OFC's priority is to ensure the FIFA World Cup qualifying process can begin later this year, and these matches must take place in the FIFA International Match Calendar. The qualifiers was scheduled to take place in the Cook Islands in March but was postponed, with the final stage to be held in New Zealand in June. The OFC Executive Committee has made this decision due to the coronavirus pandemic. All 11 member associations have faced challenging operating conditions, having to close down their offices, and many of these countries are in lockdown. The Nations Cup will not be moved to a new window, as the priority for OFC is to ensure the FIFA World Cup qualifying process can begin later this year, and these matches must take place in the FIFA International Match Calendar. They still will remain in close contact with FIFA around how the schedule may look for future FIFA International Match calendar dates. OFC is also speaking to the 11 member associations about other OFC tournaments that lead to qualification for other FIFA events such as the OFC Champions League and age group events. There is still no confirmed date to when OFC events will return in the Pacific. More stories after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. The radical new look NBL may be over before it's even begun. Less than 24 hours after reports emerged of the 5-week competition, half of the 8 teams already ruled themselves out of playing.
It was touted as the first professional sport to return in New Zealand post-COVID-19, a concept put to clubs a week ago. But just a day after its public reveal, the shortened NBL is in massive doubt.
We aren't going to participate in the proposed 5-week tournament due to a factor of reasons.
After canvassing clubs today, One News can reveal half of the 8 don't support the idea of a compressed comp to be held in one location. The Taranaki Mountaineers last week ruled themselves out, while last night the Manawatu Jets did the same. Today, the Wellington Saints and Hawke's Bay Hawks followed suit, leaving just the Canterbury Rams eager, the Nelson Giants hopeful, and the Franklin Bulls and Southland Sharks non-committal.
So there's this great pool of players available. And it would be a really good thing if the fans and our corporate partners and business partners could see some of our best players in the country compete in an event.
One News has obtained a 4-page letter sent from NBL General Manager Justin Nelson to club bosses, pleading with them to reconsider. In it, he fears a shutdown message for 2020 would put long-term deals for clubs and the league in jeopardy, while it would also raise questions around their future. He says the league could bring communities together out of COVID-19. It also revealed he's approached the Otago Nuggets, due to join in 2021, and the Breakers to try and keep the proposal alive. In a statement, Nelson says they respect teams are feeling the strain financially and are focused on next year, but from a league perspective, they're committed to trying to get 60 Kiwis back to work. There are common themes from clubs opposed to the proposal. Most have local sponsors. The compressed comp gives them little exposure. Player welfare is an issue. Those with full-time jobs expected to take 5 weeks off, while the radical draft idea, where loyal players may have to change clubs, doesn't sit well with many.
We spend a lot of time recruiting players and in the off-season to get them to play for our franchises, and that's all thrown out the door.
Despite pulling out, many club bosses have applauded the NBL's attempt to bring a league to life, but it seems most are now looking ahead to 2021.
Sports fans got the chance to embrace the legend of Michael Jordan last night as the first 2 episodes of the much-anticipated documentary series Last Dance aired in New Zealand.
It may be billed as the story of the 1998 Chicago Bulls, but there's no doubt The Last Dance is the Michael Jordan show.
That may have been the last shot Michael Jordan will ever take in the NBA.
There can be no debate that Jordan transcended basketball. He was the biggest name in 90s sport.
If you want to look at this from a business thing, have a sense of respect for the people who have laid the groundwork.
Prime time, airtime. If he wasn't quite big enough to be seen from space, he found a way to be seen in it.
Space Jam. You've never seen anything like it.
Now, more than 2 decades since he last took the court for the Chicago Bulls, he's still a ratings bonanza. The first 2 episodes of The Last Dance debuted in the US on the weekend, becoming the most watched sporting documentary in ESPN history. As always, Jordan is the star.
I like the way you think.
They say Jordan played every game as if it were his last because he knew someone in the crowd would be watching him for the first time. And his teammates had to live with that drive. One lived with it better than most, his trusted lieutenant, Scottie Pippen. But Pippen could never outshine Jordan. It was never in the script. This is at heart a study in the will and defiance of a great athlete, a cultural icon, and anyone seeking a dose of nostalgia will be richly rewarded. But as in all the best productions, the magic lives in the spaces just outside the spotlight. That is where The Last Dance is sure to truly shine.
You're watching National EMTV News. Helen will be back with the weather forecast for the next 24 hours.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Mostly fine with cloudy periods at times in Port Moresby. Partly cloudy with a chance of morning showers in Daru. Partly cloudy with evening showers in Kerema and Popondetta, and partly cloudy with a chance of light drizzles in Alotau. In the Momasu region, mostly fine weather in Lae. Chance of light rain drizzle tonight in Medang and Vanimo. Mostly fine weather, though partly cloudy at times in Wewak. In the New Guinea Islands region, mostly fine weather in Lorengau, Kokopo and Rabaul. Partly cloudy, although mostly fine in Kavieng. Cloudy with few evening showers in Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, partly cloudy with a chance of few evening showers in Mount Hagen. Mostly fine, then scattered morning fog in Kondiawa and Goroka, and chance of light evening rain drizzle, then scattered morning fog in Mendi and Wabag. Forecast for small ships. There is a renewal strong wind warning for all coastal waters of southern PNG Indonesian border to Daru, Tuyul Island to Hood Point and Aroma Coast, including the Coral Sea. Strong southeast winds of 25 to 33 knots are expected to continue for the next 6 hours and will continue for the next 24 hours. All small crafts and boats are advised to take necessary precautions before and after going out to sea. Forecasts for small crafts within the coastal waters of Papua New Guinea for the next 24 hours. Waters of Samarai Island and eastern and western Milne Bay Island, seas of 1.5 to 2 meters. Waters of East Cape to Cape Fogle to Finschhafen, including waters of Finschhafen through Vitiaz and Dampier Straits to CRC Island to Long Island, and with waters of West New Britain, seas of 0.5 to 1 meter. Waters of Long Island to Medang to Bogia to Wewak to Aitape and northern PNG Indonesian border, including waters of Manus and its western group of islands, with waters of New Ireland, East New Britain and Bougainville, seas of 0.5 to 1 meter. A look at the ocean forecast. The PNG areas in the Coral Sea, seas moderate to rough with southeast winds at 25 to 33 knots. In the Solomon Sea, seas slight to moderate with northeast winds at 10 to 20 knots. In the Bismarck Sea, seas slight with northeast to southeast winds at 10 to 15 knots. And in the Pacific Ocean, seas smooth with east to southeast winds at 5 to 10 knots.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And that's the news, sport and weather for today, Tuesday, the 21st of April 2020. On behalf of the entire EMTV News team around the country, pleasant viewing. Good night.